So Newcastle United have been given some extra time to reflect on what happened at Fulham at the weekend. Obviously the Wimbledon game got postponed. That's now been rearranged for next week. But I think Newcastle players and the squad and the staff will have had that opportunity to look back at that game, have a bit more of an inquest, if you like. Probably a bit of Newcastle players were concerned looking back on elements of that game, which were truly shocking, really, when you look at the team and the squad on paper. A squad of almost, tallying up to nearly £400 million worth of talent, to not really put a shift in that opening quarter of the game. And I'm not sure what was wrong. I'm not sure what was wrong with the build-up, but looking back on that game and really deeply watching it, you see some signs that were worrying, and certainly a million miles away from a team that Eddie Howe would consider to be proud of. Certainly not the team that finished in the top four, and even last season when they were battling and scrapping with injuries, we didn't see any of that sort of determination, the grit. It was just, everything was lacking. The second half looked much better. Newcastle had started the first half like that, then we were talking about a different scenario, but they didn't. They gave Fulham a head start really in that game, and they were rubbing their hands with glee. I think most of the damage came down the flanks, but ultimately Newcastle just couldn't live with anything through the midfield, and Raul Jimenez up front was just doing what he wanted to the defence. So all that adds up to a poor show. Second half, as I say, much better. Got off to a great start with Harvey Barnes pulling the goal back. But even then, as Newcastle tried to close in on what would have been a fortunate point, the big moment being Fabian Schär failing to square it to Isak. I mean, he didn't have much time to think of it if you look back, and he probably was being instinctive, but there was just no sort of, I'm trying to think of the right word, no kind of telepathy between the two. I think Fabian Schär just sort of turned around and walked away, didn't even look at Isak. Isak standing there unhappy. So lots of worrying signs. And then obviously the big one, Bruno Guimaraes at the end, passing it across his own box. Not something he does every week, but on this occasion, not very good. So lots to improve on. Watched Man City last night against Watford, the Carabao Cup. 2-1 on paper, but I think ultimately Man City had opportunities to see the game off at 2-0. Could have been a much better scoreline. Watford getting back into it later on, but City doing the professional job and getting through. So, and resting a lot of players as well. So they're going to have a very strong opening lineup at Newcastle. Rodri aside, unfortunately for him, not going to be involved again this season, but that shouldn't make any difference to Newcastle's preparation, because Man City have got just such a huge squad at their disposal. So lots to think about, lots of room for improvement, and Newcastle United go into this game against Man City probably with a few points to prove to people, and if they can do it, then great. Sets them up for another good week if they can get that big result that they desperately need. They desperately need to go and show people that wasn't the real Newcastle at Fulham, and hopefully they can do that at St James's Park on Saturday.